Ever heard of 1 Million Cups? If not, this is your perfect chance to see what it's about, or at least take a peek at it. It's the place where entrepreneurs come together to support each other and make the world a better place. Take a look at this presentation. Thanks.
Do not just tell the same story over and over again. Don't submit the same press release over and over again. As I mentioned, some other things that are annoying. This is really, really annoying. Getting the same press release over and over and over again. And it's one of those things you just stop reading it because it's the same thing. And it's just going to go straight to the trash bin. Press releases should be brief but intriguing. They should not be longer than one page. And whether that's a written page or a Microsoft Word document, whatever, they should not be longer than one page, preferably less. And you should write them with the important information at the beginning and less important information at the bottom, just in case the news outlet that you're sending it to decides to publish it verbatim or what you have submitted. It still is the case, particularly in print publications, that they'll run out of room and they'll chop the stuff off at the bottom because that's the way journalism works. The important stuff goes at the top, the less important stuff goes at the bottom. Another practical consideration is find out when deadlines are and meet them. If you don't meet deadlines, so your story's not getting in, the presses are not stopping for you. This is particularly relevant to me in the magazine world. Magazines, the magazine I worked for was a bi-monthly publication. Magazines are still print publications, and that means they have to schedule time on the presses months in advance. So a bi-monthly magazine like a November-December issue would be being finished up in August. So you have to think in advance. For print newspapers, you also have to think about that. As we mentioned, for Eden Prairie Local News, our weekly newsletter comes out on Friday. So if you have an event, say this Friday is the 24th. Say you have an event that's happening next week on the 29th, which is next Wednesday. You would have to submit that by this Thursday in order for it to be in our Friday newsletter. And the reason it has to be Thursday is because, as Jeff mentioned, our newsletter comes out on Friday. It comes out bright and early Friday morning, so things have to be done by Thursday to go in the Friday newsletter. You want to think about deadlines. You want to keep that in mind. If you have a big event, you also want to ideally submit it well in advance of deadlines, so there's a little room for possible corrections or something happens, you can get the word out. This was particularly relevant in my life. My mom is an Uber volunteer in my hometown, and a few years ago she was helping with their local 150th celebration for the anniversary of the town. And this is in Iowa. They submitted it to the Des Moines Register, and it didn't come out when they expected it to, which was right before the celebration. But there was no time to put a correction in because the celebration, this was like Thursday, I think their events calendar came out, and the celebration was Saturday. They didn't have time to get it in the next week's thing. So think about things in advance planning. How do you submit press releases? Most often you're going to be submitting them via email. I've included Eden Prairie Local News email at the beginning of the handout. It's actually pretty easy to remember. It's editor@eplocalnews.org. But you're usually sending them via email. You can include a brief introductory paragraph with your contact information. The reason I put your contact information in the body of your press release in the email and then also send it as an attachment is because oftentimes, like in my print magazine background, it was a lot easier just to open the attachment, copy, paste, put the press release in the magazine. Email formatting can sometimes get If they're going to do that, it just makes it easier to copy and paste if you have an attachment. You do want to proof for grammar, spelling, other details. Yes, the news publication should be doing that, and they probably will proof your press release for that kind of thing. But the things you really want to look for are clarity about things like say your event is Wednesday, January 29th. You don't want to say Thursday, January 29th, because then people are confused. Well, is it Thursday the 30th or is it Wednesday the 29th? And that is something, you know, that can be delayed because people are trying to figure out what is the correct information. You want to make sure that your name and your product are spelled right, because we're going to assume you know how to spell your name and your product. So we're going to assume that's correct. Your website address, you know, you don't want to have a typo in your website address so people can't find you, that kind of thing. If you are submitting something that, as an attachment, do not double space after periods. A lot of people grew up with that. You learned that in your typing class years ago. Don't do it anymore. It takes up space in a print publication. All those extra little spaces take up space, which means somebody, which is probably going to be the lowest person on the totem pole, who's probably not going to like you after this, has to go in and take all those spaces out. Don't use fancy fonts when you're sending out your press release because they're hard to read. You know, just make it readable. You do want to include photos when you can. They add extra interest. It's often you get more play or more visibility if you include a photo. If you do include a photo, make sure it's a quality photo. It's in focus. You can tell what the item is. You've included information for a caption. You know, if there are people in the photo, you say who these people are and how they're relevant. You know, like dry cleaner company president Joe Smith and delivery driver Alice Wilson or whatever that is. If you're sending a photo to a print publication, particularly, it has to be of high enough resolution that it's going to print well, which means it has to be 300 dots per inch of resolution or greater. So they're usually like if they're like 4 inches or so in size. You don't want to, you know, you can set your photos on your phone to a higher resolution. It's in settings on your camera app on your phone. So phone photos are fine. It's just you don't want to have them be low quality photos. As I've mentioned, most things now happen via email. Occasionally, you might want to send something via the post office, via snail mail. In my experience at the Woodworking magazine, generally when this would happen is there are some woodworking shows that happen every year at about the same time, and the tool manufacturers have booths there and they let it show their new products and stuff. So generally when this would happen would be some tool manufacturer trying to drum up hype, or we're going to be unveiling the latest and greatest, coolest thing ever at our show, at our booth at the show. And they would send snail mail with like a little teaser, or sometimes little gifts with branded things, which AKA swag. Like there's a PR person from Hitachi Tools who sent great stuff for a while, like a little paperclip holder thing, branded Hitachi. I actually still have mine, and little squeeze stress balls and stuff. Sometimes you want to do that kind of thing just to draw more attention to yourself. Do keep in mind, however, that a lot of publications have rules about what their reporters and people on the editorial side can accept for gifts. A lot of organizations will say, you know, you can't accept gifts at all, you can't accept them over a certain value or something like that. So it might work to draw attention, but it also might get donated to charity, which is often what they do with some of those things that they're not allowed. Don't stress about writing a headline for your press release. Yes, you want it to be relevant, but the publication is probably going to rewrite your headline anyway, so that's not the biggest deal you need to worry about. You need to worry about what is the information that people need to know. Remember to include your contact information just in case there are questions, like, like I said, if you put Thursday, January 29th, then somebody has to contact you and say, is it Thursday or is it Wednesday, the 29th? So this email and phone number, make it clear in your press release if you have contact information, what contact information is for the public. Because sometimes people will publish a press release and it's like, well, they included their phone number. We think they want their phone number, and then it's your personal phone number, and you start getting all these calls about your business, the number you don't want. So it's helpful to know what you want published and what you don't. But it is also important that the news organization have a way to contact you. And so you've done all that. And then for some reason you're thinking, send it out into the other, press release didn't get published. You're like, why? What did I do wrong? Well, did you miss the deadline? If it was for print publication or something. Were you rude and presumptive and said, here's my press release, I expect this to be published in this exact manner, in this exact wording, on this exact date? That's not how it works. If you want complete control over wording or timing or when or if something will be published, that's an advertisement. You need to buy an advertisement. Press releases are submitted to the editorial side of a news publication, which means that they exercise judgment in how, when, if they publish it. Was it relevant to the publication's audience? Again, we did not publish the David Hasselhoff cruise thing in Woodworking Magazine.
Mistake.
We also did not, again, it was a national woodworking magazine, and there was some little cabinet shop in Ohio that obviously had us on their press distribution list, and they'd send us an email press release every time they had like a new vice president or something. It's like, okay, this is one cabinet shop in the nation, we don't really care. Unless we were gonna go drive over there and visit them, which we didn't, even though we had somebody who lived in Ohio working for us, but make sure it's relevant. Was there so much going on in that time frame that there wasn't any space for your press release? Some days are bigger news days than others. There might be a lot going on that there just wasn't room in the publication to put your press release in that day, or there wasn't time, or as Jeff mentioned, Eden Prairie Local News is a nonprofit, and there just wasn't enough capacity. We have a couple people who are paid. We have one full-time employee, that's Stuart, he's right over there. And we rely a lot on ad hoc volunteer contributors, freelancers. Sometimes there just isn't capacity to cover everything, and sometimes it gets delayed for a while because there isn't that capacity. Or the best case scenario for you, you sent your press release, the press release didn't get published, but the media outlet said, oh, this is interesting. They sent their own reporter, they sent their own photographer, they wrote their own story about it. They covered your product, event, whatever it was, and with their own coverage, which generally means it's going to get bigger play, better placement, and so forth. But they didn't publish your press release because they already covered it the other way. This is great for you. If it's deemed cool enough or interesting enough or whatever, that they covered it with their own coverage and they didn't run your press release, that's actually the best case scenario for you. So don't get all upset that they didn't publish your press release in that case. And that is the end of my presentation. If anybody else has anything to add or questions? questions? Jeff?
Go ahead.